Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Halloween in July fundraiser. We're raising money for the scholarships, which are very important and have done many, many, many wonderful things. And probably some of you watching have been a recipient of that. Today, we are going to have the Weird and Wonderful, the HWA Mental Health Initiative, hosted by Lauren Elise Daniels with panelists Lee Murray and Brian Matthews. And this is going to be an awesome, awesome, awesome panel. And with that, I turn it over to you guys. Thank you all for doing this.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you. And welcome, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today to join us for the Weird and Wonderful, the HWA Mental Health Initiative. I'd like to ask Lee and Brian to introduce themselves. First, maybe Lee, you could start us off.
Thank you, Lauren. My name is Lee Murray. For those of you who are watching who haven't met me, I'm an award-winning writer and editor from Aotearoa, New Zealand, and I am the current co-chair with Dave Jeffery of the HWA Wellness Committee. Unfortunately, Dave can't be with us today. He's unwell, so we're sending our love to you, Dave, and very pleased to be here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brian Matthews. Besides being a writer, I am also a trustee of the Horror Writers Association. I've been known to organize a StokerCon or 2 or 3 or 4 over the years. During the daytime, I'm a financial planner, but I actually have a graduate degree in clinical psychology, and I was a practicing therapist for about 20 years before changing roles. And I'm also a member of the Wellness Committee for the Mental Health Wellness Committee, along with Lee.
Thank you. I'm Lauren Elise Daniels. Ellie Daniels is my pen name. I'm an editor. I've been in publishing for, 30 years now. I'm also an author of a novel, Author Craft Books. I won an award as a poet. I've got a poem in the Australian shadows at the moment, and we'll talk about that a little later, but I'm just pleased to be here and to be your moderator. First, let's start with you, Brian. What exactly is the HWA Mental Health Initiative?
It is an initiative that the Horror Writers Association started to raise awareness among writers and readers of the accurate and respectful portrayal of mental health in horror literature. Could be, we're basically writers, but it could also be film, and an effort to expand that awareness on how to treat the issue respectfully in your writing, accurately. We have, which we'll go into a little bit more detail later, a notable works section, which allow, you can go into and you can look at, these are works that we feel accurately portray mental health, and you can learn from them more than what we're just talking about, but you can learn from them on how other writers have succeeded in accurately portraying mental illness and mental health, because they're two sides of the same coin.
We've seen some major shifts in publishing regarding exactly the portrayals where, the old villains are now, those tropes are being broken, and we're seeing heroes who are contending with mental health issues. So it's a massive shift in the industry. Lee, can you tell us how the Mental Health Initiative came about?
Yeah, I think I think Brian covered it very well, but it is an intent to do better, within the horror genre, because we have notoriously been quite poor at representations of mental illness in horror. And so I think it was maybe 2018, 17 or 18. Jim Chambers reached out to some of us around the May Mental Health Month in the United States, and said, hey, we're thinking that this could be something we should be addressing. And at the time, John Palisano was our president, and he was very, very driven on the subject and thought it was something that we needed to be addressing. So James reached out to a few of us and said, well, let's just start with this Mental Health Month and see what we can do. And he collected some essays from a number of us, and I was lucky enough to be invited, and I reached out to my colleague Jeffery in the UK, who is an author himself of horror, and he also has had 30 years experience in the NHS advocating on mental health issues, and so he was a perfect person to speak to about this. His own work addresses many of these issues, and so Dave and I wrote an essay for that, and that particular essay series was very well received by the HWA. And then the pandemic hit, and various other things, and so we it just kind of went on the back burner, and those essays kind of got filtered down through the blog, and so what it's like. It's like yesterday's newspaper, you don't see it again. And we thought, well, hang on a minute, we started some good work here, and it's maybe time, especially coming out of the pandemic, to do a bit better, because we were all thinking about mental health, and how can we sustain ourselves, and we were all reading during the pandemic. We were all consuming so much, and I think zombie fiction, which is of course pandemic fiction, was one of the most consumed form of entertainment during that period. So obviously mental health issues have been top of mind for the last few years, with so much going on in our world around us. And so I think it might have been Jim, or perhaps it was Brian. I can't exactly. I think they're both pretty good at press ganging people, having worked on the StokerCon committee.
A little bit. Yeah.
So they reached out and said, okay, come on, you people who did the original essays, we should be doing better. And John Palisano was right behind this. He was also part of that press gang and said, look, maybe we should be looking at rolling out something else. And they sort of pointed the finger at this group and said, what about it? And I just took a step back to no. Too much work. And I also, have my own struggles with anxiety and depression. I thought, really, am I the right person to represent this? I don't have a clinical background or any of these sorts of things. And then, you're asking busy people. That's how these things happen, isn't it? You ask busy people. So I said, nobody put their hand up, and I thought, well, this is too important to let slide, especially when there was so much impetus coming from the leadership in the HWA, which said there was going to be good support for it. So Dave, I kind of press ganged Dave and said, I don't want to do this on my own. Will you come and help me? And then, of course, all of the others in that group said, well, we'll back you up. If you come and do this, if you would be co-chairs, we will support you and we will help you. And they have. It's a fantastic group, and they have great ideas, and they've had to rein us in with the scope of it, because it's a big topic, and there are lots of ways we could take this. So we rolled out the initiative with just a few, the things we could manage, small things, which we hope will make big impacts and spread our messaging and go further, so we can do better. So that's kind of how it came about. Lots of press ganging basically is the key thing.
You hit on some points there, and I wonder if we can expand a little bit. Let's talk about the aspects that are developing. So the committee, the initiative, holistic horrors. Brian, do you want to talk about the different avenues you see developing from this initiative?
Sure. I think at the very beginning, if memory serves, Jim Chambers and I actually put in a panel called Hope and Horror at StokerCon. I believe it was in Denver. I think it was actually, no, it might have been the virtual one.
It was in Rhode Island.
Was it in Rhode Island?
Oh.
I know because
in Providence.
Yes, I know because I pitched it, and
okay, all right.
and I think you were on it.
I've been on all of them, but yeah, I can't. It's been so long, I can't remember.
It was a fantastic panel. It was very scary, but yes.
Yeah, and well, again, we had actually 2 mental health panels in Pittsburgh. Writer self-care, and we had the one that Lee and I were on.
We had 4.
We had 4.
Well, we also had a mental health and addiction panel.
Oh, Mark Matthews is one. Yeah.
Yes, and we had a
Yeah.
virtual panel as well, sense and sensitivity.
Yes,
On
Dave did that
so we
one.
had 4 fantastic
Right.
panels touching on that issue.
That's
yeah.
part of our outreach is because the StokerCon is getting so big and we're getting 600, 700, 800 people. We're trying to present along those lines live, like we're doing now. The Notable Works is one of the initiatives we're trying to do to advance the goals of the committee, which, like I said earlier, is the respectful and accurate approach to mental health and mental illness. And what we're trying to do is, like I said, through the Notable Works, through the I think the Hope and Horror book, the little essays and all that, other ways to get out to everybody what we're trying to achieve.
Absolutely.
Excellent. And it's complicated. I think we have a lot going on here, and it's got such potential. Can we talk about the Notable Works and how the writers out there who have something could maybe have a friend read it and recommend it? I mean, maybe specifically describe what we're looking for. So we're looking for authentic and respectable representation of mental health. We're looking for like really accurate and compassionate portrayals in our stories that are taking us into the next wave of writing. That's what I'm seeing. Would either of you like to talk about what you'd like to hear from? I mean, how can I rephrase that? What you'd like to receive in terms of Notable Works recommendations? And because I know we're going to have some authors watching saying, I've got a book. How do I get it in that list? And how do I get a sensitivity reader to read it?
Do you want me to do this, Lee, or do you want to?
Yeah, you go ahead and then I'll jump in and correct you.
All right.
I love that.
Yeah, that happens a lot. Notable Works. We are looking for books, stories, collections even, that will, again, address mental health in a respectful and accurate way. I even have a visual aid on our first one we did, which was Whale Fall by Daniel Krauss. Some of you may have heard of it. As it was released on Tuesday, and as of today, it's in its 4th printing. It's been wildly successful, and Daniel does a phenomenal job. The main character, the protagonist, I'm not going to give away the story, but has issues. And Dan just doesn't say person has issue. He goes back and he explains the multi-factor approach to depression, anxiety, survivor guilt, self-consciousness, hopelessness, helplessness. It doesn't come from one source. It comes from educational sources, socioeconomic sources, parental, familial sources. And Dan goes in and explores all of that. And very respectfully, and for the writers out there who are listening, characterization is wonderful. You want to talk about getting into your character's head, Dan does that with Whale Fall. So if you have a book, or you know of a book that you think might fit, that breaks the Michael Myers trope or the Freddy Krueger trope or something like that, write up a review, send it in. We have an email. Do we?
We have a submittable, Brian.
Submittable portal.
Yeah, so you can, and all the guidelines are there.
Yep, the guidelines are there, so you can write up a review, submit it. You can't submit your own work. You have to have somebody else submit it. And then it comes to us, and then we assign some readers from the committee, sensitivity readers, that will read the work and make sure that the review accurately portrays what's in the book. And then if it all meets the guidelines, then we will put it up on the website. And if you just type into Google Notable Works Horror Writers Association, if you're a member, should take you right to the site where we have them listed out. There's a half a dozen or so at this point. That might be a good start for you to go and look and say, okay, these are ones I can read. These are going to teach me a little bit. I think personally that's one of the best initiatives that we have on the committee and in the HWA. And Angela just put it in the chat on how to find it.
Angela.
Thank you, Angela.
Yes, that's right. And it's actually if you just go to the HWA Mental Health Initiative, you'll be able to find all those links. And I think you're dead right, Brian. I think it is an extremely important initiative. And one of the things I think is that we're all looking for ways to do better as horror writers. And there are so many examples of it done badly. And what we're looking for is how is it done well, and so this is an opportunity for our members who are looking critically at works and reading widely, because we do as part of our process for writing, as we read widely in our genre. And when they see something that really resonates for them, for whatever reason, why has the author done a good job? Have they been really intensely in the head, using a very close POV? Have they used metaphor and poetry in order to reveal mental illness in a fresh way? Have they used their research? Have that, all of the kinds of tools that we would use to do a good job, and their own personal experience, how has that impacted them personally? Did they find some solace in this piece of writing? And then if they want to put that in just a 500-word review and send it in, then we'd be really pleased to see it, because those good examples are what we're looking for, isn't it? That's how we learn and do better and apply those same tools to our own work. And Lauren, you're part of the sensitivity reading panel, and that's been such important work. So do you want to talk a little bit about that? We've also reviewed Lauren's incredible Serpent's Wake, which is just a beautiful, beautiful study of PTSD. And there's an interview with Lauren on our mental health initiative on the blog, the Holistic Horrors blog, and there's also a notable works review of Serpent's Wake up by Dave Jeffery in the notable works. Yeah, but can you just talk to us a little bit about being part of that sensitivity, because it's quite a big task being involved, and there's a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of responsibility being part of that, because we want to tread softly on people's dreams, don't we? But we also want to improve our practice.
First, I have to thank Dave Jeffery for reading Serpent's Wake and for giving it such a generous review, because that was a book that I wrote for people who know PTSD or complex PTSD. And it was a 30-year kind of project. I'm not kidding, where the seed was planted, but I didn't have the courage to write it. And then it took me 7 years to include multiple perspectives in that narrative. So Dave received it and he understood it, and it's not for everybody. But when it does touch the right kind of reader who knows things, about this experience, the response has been incredible. And so for Dave to put it on the notable works, I almost hesitated to mention it because it was so overwhelming to see it received that way. He got it on every level. So I have to thank him again for that. And I think that does highlight the idea, if you've written something where this condition or issue or struggle so intimately, and you've framed it in a way that you just know other people will get it. That old C.S. Lewis quote, where we read so we don't feel alone. If you've done something like that, that comes back to you sharing your work with us so we can help just frame it for you and place it for you. And as a sensitivity reader, I think I was involved in the Whale Fall reading, which I couldn't love that anymore. I was only going to start it because I had so much on, and I ended up devoting my entire weekend to it. I'm like, don't talk to me. This is incredible. And it was that, again, that what Brian had said about complex background behind mental health issues, where it's not, oversimplification is not acceptable in publishing anymore. We're wanting more from our experiences of reading these stories. So cycling back to sensitivity reading, I know there's so much to talk about.
Yeah, it's a big topic.
when it was presented as a story, can we include this? Brooklyn Ann wrote a beautiful review, and I put my hand up and I said, I grew up with a stutter, which is a neurological disorder, and I have navigated that. And when I read it, I only knew of one other or two other characters and stories, Cuckoo's Nest Billy, and on MASH there was an episode of a character who Charles Winchester defends. I said, other than that, I saw zero representation. So I kind of said to Lee, would you mind if I just wrote a short little thing to say how important this was? And representation matters is one of our, it's an echo among the HWA. So if you find something like that, if there's a story where you see something represented that intimately, help us highlight it. And I think that's what I did for the stutter. Reading that book gave me the courage to write to Stephen King at 16, 17 years old and say, hey, and he did write back. It was kind of great. I won't say that word. I'm sorry. It was kind of amazing and stunning and just, it highlighted how powerful representation can be and how, if you think about your younger readers as well, who are encountering your work, what will it do for them in the longer term if they have exposure to a story that frames exactly what they know and also defrocks that stigma, just takes the stigma out of it.
Totally. And interestingly, you both wrote very different reviews. You both came from a point of view of personal experience, and both of you wrote quite different reviews. So it's interesting. So we can have more than one. There doesn't need to be just one. So if other people have also found it a work particularly useful and has offered solace in different ways, then sure, we don't have to be limited to a single review of a particular work if more than one person has found that useful. And the sensitivity work is just so important. We are looking for triggers. We are looking to make sure that the work itself is also we don't just read the review. So I think that we need to make that very clear. We also read the works in question. And thank you to those publishers who provide us those works in question, because we think it is important work, and they are recognizing that yes, this is important work, and we do need to do better as an industry in terms of providing authentic and accurate representations of mental illness in our horror works. So
I think the editing background for me has helped as well, where I've been coached on what to look for years now. And maybe if we have other people who'd like to be sensitivity readers and they have a little editing background, or they can bring that to the table. I think we are looking, we're
always
help
looking
along
for
the
support.
way.
Absolutely.
Yes, please.
Yes, we're always welcome. People who would like to write for our Holistic Horrors column, which is our, HWA newsletter column, and that gets reproduced in our blog a month later, so more people can read it. But that is a great space where we welcome people's personal testimonies, especially. Those are really helpful. That's a good example. But we're doing, I think the thing is that it seems like a lot of little things, and we've got these big initiatives like Notable Works, but also we've got that dedicated web page, we've got outreach, we've got a list of resources for people particularly who are looking for help, because some people, we're not about therapy, it's not that isn't our role, that's beyond the scope of this work, but we do have a page where people can look for help if they're looking for specific
resource page, right?
resource page. And at the moment, that particular page is kind of representative of where our members are for the moment. But also, there are lots of blog posts. There's also of Horror and Hope. So maybe we can talk a little bit about Of Horror and Hope. It's a booklet of reflections and poems and fiction on the HWA website. It's free to download. It was edited by myself and Angela Rico-Smith, and it includes a beautiful poem by Lauren. And do you want to talk about that, Lauren? Because it's currently nominated for an Australian Shadows Award. And tell us about your poem, because it's a stunning poem.
Thank you. And maybe this can also lead to some of the points we want to make about authors and mental health and resources and tools and the challenges that writers are facing as well. Of Horror and Hope, when that submission call came out, my lovely friend Genevieve Flynn put the call in front of me and said, "Hey, you should write something for this." And that just highlights how important our community is. Once again, I'm going to keep underscoring that. And I wrote a poem about night terrors because it's something I've had for a long time. I don't remember when I didn't. And I wrote a poem about it and framed it in such a way as to give, I guess, a visceral kind of experience, and also, show how my family was affected by them, because they can be loud. Sorry. And to just share it and maybe again have that experience where a reader reads it and says, "Oh, that's what that's called," or "Oh, that's what I'm dealing with." When certain things can spike it, like news reports about the war going on someplace, or stressors at work or something. So I wrote Night Terrors. It is up for an award, and it wasn't something that I would have stepped forward and said, here's what I contend with. So Of Horror and Hope gave me courage to try to put something together. And I saw Greg Chapman's cover and I thought, that's gorgeous. I'd love to be involved in something like this. It's important to me as far as my work goes. I mean, I work with veterans, I work with people with all kinds of challenges. I work with seniors in terms of teaching and creative writing and journaling, and how important this is for us all. So I think, maybe we can ask Brian to chime in here about mental health and writers who are, it's an isolating kind of profession at times. And can you share some tips for the listeners?
Well, of course, yeah. Writing is very lonely. You sit in front of your computer for hours, or even an hour, day after day, and it's lonely work. And you've got that person on your shoulder going, "This is crap, this is crap, this is crap," while you're writing.
Yes.
So it gets to be depressing. It gets to be that imposter syndrome issue. So it's obviously very important to balance out your life. Make sure for as much work as you're putting in, you're getting activity, you're talking with friends and family, you're getting enough rest, you're getting enough exercise. I can't emphasize exercise enough. Just going for a walk, even clear your head. Matter of fact, I sometimes work with writer's block. Your subconscious is still going through, and while you're doing something different, there's a certain plot point or a certain character issue, the solution can pop in. But exercise and diet and sleep, oh my goodness, sleep, something none of us get very much of. But it's important to treat yourself well as treating your reader well. Because if you don't treat yourself well, your reader's not going to read anything that you write, because you're not going to be able to write. So the main tip is balance. This isn't therapy. I'm not trying to tell you what to do, or this. Everybody's got their own situation and should seek out whatever help they need or want. But yeah, it's mainly a balance. We are all alone, and until we get together at a convention where we can all commiserate together about everything, it is important not to isolate yourself. It is important just to make sure you're getting all of the different aspects of your life. You've got to be happy. You've got to be well-rounded. That will help you focus enough to do the writing that you want to do. And you should think about that for your characters too, to be honest. They have to have real reactions. They have to have real effects on stress, like Lauren said, with post-traumatic stress disorder. So you treating yourself appropriately will help you learn to write how your characters should be treated appropriately.
I love that you mentioned imposter syndrome, because it was at StokerCon where I heard several people say, "I can't believe so-and-so admitted to imposter syndrome." And I thought, oh man, we've all got it. We've all got it. And isn't that wonderful to have that outed?
Yeah.
Yes, that's the reason for the title, Weird and Wonderful, because I do think that there is some wonderful in the weird, is there not? And the community, and just opening a dialogue about these things and being very honest and vulnerable. And I think that's what we've done with Of Horror and Hope, and also Notable Works, is we're allowed people to open a dialogue. We've said, we have these issues, I have this issue, this is how I feel, and to be honest about it. And I think that permission to open a dialogue and be frank, we're not saying this is how you should do it, we're just saying these are the tools I use, and these work for me, and to help other people not feel so alone. I think those are, and I have to say, as as the chairperson of the committee, we have been totally, overwhelmed by the response from not only the HWA community, but the broader community. A number of horror sites have supported our work. There have been a number of universities and networks who've come to us and said, we're interested in what you're doing. This is important work. This is the face of progress. And I think all of us agree that there is we are all so lonely in this process, and so anywhere we can find connection and which is what we do with horror, isn't it? It's the most primal thing. Fear is the most primal sensation, feeling, and the long-term effects of fear are the things that manifest in our mental illness often,
and even your physical illness.
Exactly. So which is why we come under the umbrella of the Mental Health Initiative, comes under the umbrella of the Wellness Committee for that very reason. And the Holistic Horrors is our kind of column, our communications site. So I totally agree with you, Brian. I think that part of what we're doing is looking at self-care and how writing, of course, is a process of expressing yourself, and so just the process of writing can also be very therapeutic, not to use the word therapeutic, but it can offer solace. Your characters can find a way through, then maybe there's a chance for the rest of us to find a way through and at least see some hope at the other end. And I think that was the whole point of horror and hope. But one of the things I wanted to also say was at the StokerCon, we also had Cynthia Palaio put out this absolutely gorgeous StokerCon, conference booklet, but she was very kind enough. She was kind enough to include our mental health charter in the back of the book. I'm just trying to find it. So here it is. It looks gorgeous. Oops, yeah, there we go. And this is work that we didn't expect to be doing. So as a result of all of the work, the various initiatives, the various activities we were doing in the rollout of the mental health initiative, we realized we needed some kind of guidelines. Like sensitivity readers are saying to us, well, what are we looking for? What are the criteria? What makes a notable work? What makes, what kind of work are you looking for in Of Horror and Hope? And we realized that we didn't have those guidelines. What was the intent of our initiative? How could we articulate that in a way that people understood it? What's the sort of baseline for the work going forward? And so Dave Jeffery put this together, and with the help of the committee, but he did the bulk of this work. He looked through all of the things we were doing and looked for the common threads and came up with this charter. And I've actually got this printed out, this charter, and I've been using it in my own work when I've been assessing works, when I've been writing blurbs for colleagues, when I've been, working with mentees, to be aware of, what we want to do better. And those guidelines have been extremely helpful. They're on the Mental Health Initiative. I think they might even be in Of Horror and Hope, but I'm not sure.
I thought they were in Horror and Hope.
Yeah. And so that has been that basically has given us sort of a fence post for us. So I think that we'll probably add to that over time as things progress. It's an organic document. But so anyone who went to the 2023 StokerCon, that's in that booklet, virtual or otherwise, but it's also it's also on our website, so you can sort of see what our intent is. And also, while you're there, you can download Of Horror and Hope. It's completely free. You're welcome to look at it, read it, enjoy it, share it with your friends. That is a completely free resource for anyone, and not just our members. And I have shared it on my newsletter and put it on my website, because the more people who read it and find some solace or find some connection there, I welcome that. Please, feel free to share it. It's a free resource for everyone to enjoy.
Can we talk about the response from the community? You touched on that, Lee, and I think that's really important, because that will be our guide for where this is all going into the future. Have people said anything to either of you, Brian or Lee? Have you had responses to panels? Maybe Brian, if you want to start off, like what have you heard back from these sorts of efforts you've been making?
I did have somebody who was in the panel that the three of us were on in Pittsburgh write me an email after the convention ended, thanking me, us, because Lauren was on it, Lee was on it, Samika was on it, thanking us for bringing that out in the open, and the surprise that all of us have been experiencing similar feelings that the people in the panel audience have been feeling, and what this particular person and specifically have been feeling. And just a general feeling of gratitude. Like, again, like Leah pointed out, I'm not alone. I'm not alone when I feel anxious. I'm not alone when I feel depressed. I'm not alone when I've got that imposter syndrome nagging at me. When I see everybody else going through the same thing, it's normal. Feelings are normal.
It's wonderful.
You can't deny them. They're there. They're a part of you. You have to accept them and learn that it's okay to feel that way. It's okay to feel. It's always okay to feel.
Yeah. I want to thank Brian, actually, and James and Angela Eureka Smith, who's also on our committee, who is a board member of the HWA. What I really want to say is I want to thank the leadership of our community for recognizing the value of this and the need for it. It was Brian who took on that very first panel, and I was terrified to pitch it. I just did not know how it would be received. And I tell you what, I was panicked. I was completely panicked. I mean, I knew I had these wonderful James Arthur Anderson and Eric Kinyard and Brian. I think. Leslie Klinger. We had some, fantastic, talk. They were able to talk about Stephen King and his own issues. And so, it was a fantastic panel. I was completely full. I stood outside and I went into a little anxiety attack. I came down early because, that's what I do, Asian girl. Came down early to the panel. I stood in the hallway and I had a little panic attack. I had to go upstairs and scroll through puppies on my iPad to just calm myself down. Puppies, I cannot say the importance of puppies and little dogs and pets for anxiety. And then I came back down, and already the room was crowded, and I was terrified. But the fact that the StokerCon committee gave me a venue and allowed us to open the discussion, and since then there have been panels on all of the StokerCon events, and then further it's been broader. I think FantasyCon had one, and ChillerCon obviously had one. And there are a number of other organizations exactly who are really embracing this idea. So thank you to those festival leaders and our community leaders who are recognizing the need and getting behind it and giving us a place to open to talk about these things, which I think that's part of it, isn't it? It's the more people that gather around, and everyone has a valid voice, that everyone's experience is valid and authentic. And so if we lean into those and we talk about our personal experiences, and there is safety in horror and there's not safety in horror, if you know what I mean. So, we need to be vulnerable. In fact, when we are vulnerable, even though we have that safety of distance when we're writing horror, when we are our most vulnerable is when we do our best work. So,
yes.
So I want to thank you to the leadership of our community who have allowed us to be vulnerable, and to the people who have stepped forward, you know, in the initial stages while we're putting together of Horror and Hope and Notable Works, you know, prepared to be vulnerable, because I think that is one of the biggest things about of Horror and Hope that I just felt so privileged to be involved with, was the vulnerability and the willingness to share these very personal testimonies, which, you know, what a, you know, as an editor, and as a horror writer, I just feel very privileged to have been a part of that very important work.
Right, that first Providence panel, I was surprised at how many people were opening up in the audience. It actually, it took me by surprise, because people usually don't in front of a bunch of strangers or even just casual acquaintances, are going to open up with these personal stories from their past, and you know, looking down at Lee and Eric and all that, and we're like, and it just exploded with everybody raising their hand, and finally we had to cut it off because we ran out of time. But and then that showed me that there's a need. People and all of these panels, all of the mental health and the mental wellness and the writer self-care, have been packed. Mm-hmm. It's all there. There's always, the chairs are all full, and that just validates the work that all of us have been doing, and HWA leadership, and even in other festivals, another SIPWA and all that. What they're recognizing is a need. You know, we write for reasons, and a lot of those reasons are personal pain, our personal history. We need to get it out. We need to do something with it. And, you know, for the longest time, I don't think that was necessarily recognized or necessarily addressed. And finally, it's being addressed, and I'm really glad it is. We're characters in our own books of life, and we need to treat ourselves the same way we would treat our own characters.
That's right. We're in the story. And just to respond to what you said regarding the emails that you received after your panels, the response in the room, I think what I've learned is that we spend so much energy, we invest so much energy in concealing and coping with our challenges, that when the discussion arises in a safe kind of environment, the fresh air that enters the room and the space that opens up for other thoughts and other creative impulses is profound. And I think that's what I witnessed as well after the panel at StokerCon, the self-care panel. I had a couple of people come up to me and say, I didn't know that there were other people who got triggered by their own work. I didn't realize that happened. And it was nice to hear what you all do about it, because I feel like I'm on the right track. It can be so affirming. And I think that idea of cycling with a mental health challenge and spending all that energy and limiting your focus, you know, that's part of that pain pattern. But when you have these conversations, you can let go a little bit of some of it and realize that you don't have to protect yourself so much, or you don't have to hide it. You know, if you find out that the person next to you knows exactly what you're talking about, you relax a little bit and you can be more of yourself, maybe in your writing. Maybe a more authentic writer resides in you. So that's my hope for people and myself.
Mm-hmm. and they don't feel, if they're feeling bad, they don't feel bad about coming up and talking to you and saying, hey, I was in this panel, you know, you were talking about this. Not that they're going to, you know, unload on you or something, but I just, you know, want to thank you. I've been feeling the same way. And they're not alone anymore. And that loneliness is not a cruel thing. That's very, very harmful to somebody's emotional and physical health. But it gives them that permission, I guess you could call it, to come up to Lee or to myself or to Lauren or to the other panelists and just kind of smile and say, wow, this is great. I'm not alone in this.
Yeah.
And to me, it's invigorating. It's the fact that whatever little thing that I said or I was a part of actually helps somebody feel better. There's really, for me, not many other feelings that are more make me feel better, is to know that somebody else felt better because of something I said or something I wrote or something. that means a lot to me. Is somebody getting something out of it and feeling a little more self-worth or a little less alone.
It's a powerful motivator right
Mhm.
there. I'm on board. I got you. I'm waving. So where do you see the initiative going? What have you been talking about or imagining for the mental health initiative down the track? Where are we headed?
I think Lee's going to do a Broadway play on it. If she doesn't have enough to do already.
Well, it's really interesting because Brian, that first panel that we did, you recall I wrote an essay about it for a book called Headlands, New Perspectives on Anxiety. It was a New Zealand work by creatives, in fact, filmmakers and writers and poets. And that particular essay was picked up by a producer and is now the subject of a short film. For families,
Excellent.
a dark fantasy. So it's not in production yet, but Broadway play. I mean, I think that the more that these that works that are that shine a light on this are picked up in other media or on other sites and talked about what the world's our oyster. In terms of the initiative, it's really hard. It really depends on who steps forward, and obviously we're just a small group, and we're all working really hard to do things of value. So we want to put our energies where people in our community find that they're getting the most out of them, and we're getting responses to yes, please, to more panels. But not everyone can go to a panel, so yes, please to the panel report, so we can just get an understanding of what tools, what was said, who's talking about these issues, so that we can read them. Notable books, I'd love to see that just explode. We've got space; we could have 100 books up there. At the moment, we've got 6. It's just we've only just launched it a few months ago. I'd love to see more involvement from our community. What works for you? What is a good exemplar, so that we can study it and improve our own practice. I mean, as writers, that's the thing, isn't it? That's why we go to conferences and workshops, is to improve our craft and write the better book. And so really, I'm looking forward to hearing from our community. They can reach out to us. They can send us an email to either myself or Dave Jeffery or anyone on the wellness committee, or just send it to the director, who will pass those emails on to us. We're interested in hearing from the wider community. We're very happy to come and talk to you about what our hopes are in terms of horror media going forward, and how we can do better at representing mental illness in ways that are authentic, accurate, compassionate, and don't do harm to people with mental illness in our community. So I think the world's our oyster, in so much as we've got energy to do things, and the HWA trustees will say, okay, Lee, you can do that. Because mostly they're saying, no, Lee, we don't have the capacity for more of that on the website. But, I mean, if our members want to come forward with ideas of things that we could be doing that we can manage, that are manageable, that, it's baby steps. We just want to do everything well. We don't want to do a lot of things poorly. So that's right. We want to offer quality programs that are really going to give our members insight, and because we're a writing organization. So at the moment we're focusing on writing rather than film, but we're hoping to reach those things, because the first part of any film, for example, is the writing. So of course we're going to reach those places. So I really think the scope is up to our members, and also the wider community, who can reach out to us and say, hey, these things are possible if we did this. How can you help us? We'd like to do it, or can you take this on? And look, if we've got energy and we've got resources, and there is a way we can move forward, we'll do what we can do. So it's really up to our community to come forward. If you want to be a sensitivity reader, you just might want to get involved, be on a panel. There's lots of opportunities. Festival organizers can call us. if they're looking to do panels on horror and mental health, and we will look at their panel blurbs and sensitivity read those for them. And that's actually quite a good resource to make sure that your panel is going to also address these things. We're sending our charter everywhere because it's such a great guideline, Dave. Thank you for all the incredible work he's done on that, because it's a small piece of writing, but it is extremely powerful in terms of those tenets that we believe in and we hope will move us forward. So I really think, and I know I'm a little bit on a soapbox here, but I really think that this is such important work, and we are open to hear that it's a dialogue. It's organic. We are open to hearing from all of our members and beyond about what they would like to see going forward.
That's wonderful, Lee. Thank you. I think it's evolving, and it'll continue to evolve and change with publishing, which has changed so much just in the last few years. So very exciting. And I'm happy to be on board to help. It's wonderful.
We're very pleased to have you, Lauren.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you. I think we also need to mention the scholarship fundraiser, and that there are free copies for those who pledge or donate $50 US or more of Other Terrors, which is a tremendous anthology.
Fantastic anthology.
It's one of the most beautiful anthologies I've gotten my hands on in quite some time. So please, if you don't have your own, this is a great way to get one.
And you don't have to donate $50, obviously, but that you do hope for that. But any amount that would help. This goes to fund the different scholarships that the Horror Writers Association has. And a lot of people have benefited from these scholarships. I think we're at, last time I looked, $3,100, which is fantastic, but we're looking to go more. And
Yes,
so
that's
if
very
$5, $10, $50 get you a book, $100 we would probably kiss you.
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
Boundaries, Brian. Boundaries.
Oh, there you go. That's right. They wouldn't feel alone. But no, there's a lot of good for underrepresented and marginalized writers and children in libraries. And I mean, there are a sundry amount of scholarships that do a lot of good, and any little bit helps. But the Other Terrors anthology is simply phenomenal. I mean, probably one of the top 3 that I've ever read. And you can get it and it's a tax-deductible donation in the United States, because the Horror Writers Association is a nonprofit organization registered with the IRS. So
it's fantastic. I think Vince and Rena did an incredible job bringing together a wonderful, group of writers, entirely progressive. It's extremely powerful work, and it's been award nominated, and I think it's got a library commendation as well. I think it's done very, very well. So we're super proud of them, and thank you to William Morrow for donating those books for us to support the HWA scholarships, which are vital, just totally vital if we're going to, have a vibrant and community going forward. These are our emerging writers who are going to be doing special things in the future. So please support them. I think it's just a hugely important initiative. So just slightly below ours, but okay.
There might be a bias on that.
Yeah, we might be slightly, but no, I think that, as far as the HWA goes, I think it's probably one of its most important initiatives is the scholarship. We are training new writers to write, and to write important horror works going forward. So yes, I think it's something we can all get behind.
And keeping everything accessible as well, and knowing that StokerCon is also it'll be streamed and you can come virtually. That's another wonderful side to this, that people, if they can't make the trip because airfares are ridiculous, they know that they can watch panels online. And maybe also this is a good time to mention that for StokerCon San Diego, if people have ideas for any panels, that they'd like to see or they'd like to moderate or participate in, maybe they can start thinking about any mental health issues that they'd like to unpack. I mean, when those links come up and those discussions start, it's just good to start thinking about
the
them
con
soon.
chairs will be sending out a link to a Google form where you'll be able to put in ideas for panels, list if you would like to be a panelist, do you mind being a moderator? And so, start thinking about it now because it's going to come up fast. Trust me, it comes up faster than you think. And the programming does take a phenomenal amount of effort to make sure there's no conflicts with Horror University and pitch sessions and author readings and other programming. And it's a lot. But start thinking about what you would like to see in this area or in any area. Vince is online. Thank you for all your leadership on this issue. A very worthwhile undertaking.
Oh, thank
Vince
you,
is like 3 miles from me. So.
Excellent.
Vince is one of the editors for Other Terrors, along with Rita Mason, and did just an absolutely incredible job. I mean, stunning work.
We want to see more. I think that's what we're all gunning for here. We want to see more, and we see the stories evolving in this way.
I'm lost on the meaning of that. So
I'm not sure how you're doing that. So my hat's
1.7 miles. He looked it up. Okay, 1.7 miles. All right. However many kilometers that is. But.
Fantastic.
All
well,
right.
If there are any final comments or anything else you'd like to suggest to members, now's our chance.
I'm going to say, click into Notable Works, have a look and see if you've read something that you'd like to review and share with us. That would be fabulous. And I'm going to say congratulations to Lauren and good luck for the Australian Shadows Award, because it'd be very nice for our Horror and Hope to have an award attached to it. We would be very pleased with that.
I'll try my best.
But also, I hope more people will read your beautiful poem, which was one of the first ones I sort of said. I remember saying to Angela, we need this one. So congratulations on that. It was a very powerful piece of work. So yes, I think, look, we would welcome anybody's input if they want to be on the committee or on our sensitivity reading group or just have ideas. We are open to them. So please reach out to me. You can get me through my website, leemurray.info, or you can contact me via the HWA through the HWA director, who will pass those things on. So
all I would say is take care of yourself, check into Notable Works, start looking at those, and your input will shape how the committee grows and how the outreach grows. So the more information we get from you, the more effective we can be, and we want to be as effective as possible. So
wonderful.
And thanks for doing this, for moderating the two wild people on either side of you. So,
Thank you, Lauren, for getting up so early in the morning to help us out.
We're on all different continents here. This is truly a global panel.
Yes, so. New Zealand, Australia, the US, we're just getting started. This is just the beginning.
If you count Angela in Brazil.
Yes, Brazil.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So, and thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it. And those of you who are going to look at it at the recording level. So thank you for popping in and looking at our little panel. And I think